I am Jackie, a recovering codependent. This is part 2 of a workshop that I really unrealistically thought I would do in one day. We got through steps 1 to 3 last time, and I have to tell you, I felt so rushed and, like behind the 8 ball the whole time. So I have made a decision to only do steps 4 and 5 today. That's enough. That's a lot. So we're going to walk our inner child. We're going to hold our inner child's hand through steps 4 and 5. So let me share my screen. So my inner child walks through the 12 steps. Part 2 of we don't know how many parts. Okay. Set aside prayer. God, today help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see the truth. A little bit of housekeeping, just a reminder, if you get triggered or need a comfort break, you may step away from your screen at any time. You can log out. We do have a limit of 100, but we're only at 68 right now. If we get close to 100 and you log out, you might not be able to get back in. But if you need water, whatever you need to do to be comfortable. All right, tools for today's workshop. I always put this up here. You will need something to write on if you want to journal and something to write with. Also anything to make yourself comfortable. Candle, fuzzy socks, snuggly blanket, favorite beverage, maybe your favorite pet. And if you want to change your lighting or take care of distracting sounds, just to be aware of your environment. Coda literature used today, our blue book, the 12 Steps Handbook. We will also be on coda.org, our workbook, which I don't have here. I left that at work. And I think we might use this tools for recovery. Those of you, if we have any newcomers here, that coda.org is especially fantastic to explore what codependency is and see if maybe that's an area that you identify with. All right, same as last time, we're going to start with hope. I love hope. We will be dipping into Charlie W.'s story again. That is in our blue book. In the back, we have stories. Life is a joy now as I continue to learn and grow. So my hope for all of us today is that we will learn and grow and then have more joy. And the end. The solution lies not within trying to eradicate the child within, but by embracing this often unpredictable, sometimes unwelcome part of ourselves. With help from our higher power, as we experience and accept our inner child, which I feel like step 4 is especially important on that acceptance of everything that we are able to heal our pain from the past and discover our authentic selves. Learning to accept and love ourselves is a gift we give ourselves, allowing us to live healthier, happier lives. We are able to experience what it means to love and to be loved. All right, just a reminder to adopt a child's mindset that new information sometimes is hard, and sometimes even impossible. I used this last time when we were learning to read. Sometimes we stumble, we do need help. It's difficult and also rewarding, and that a child does not do it perfectly the first time. And then I brought up the analogy of scissors, that there are certain things that we actually can't do right now. So we need to set realistic expectations. And sometimes someone simply has to do something for us. I remember when I was struggling praying for my ex-husband, my sponsor told me I could ask someone else to pray for him. And that felt good because I simply couldn't do it. So when we can't do something, there's always someone else who can help us. All right, you know what? We did this last time, so we're gonna skip that. Oh, wait, hold on one second. Oh no, this is the right one. Okay, all right. Charlie W.'s story, that spark inside of me, countering all of this was a spark of energy, creativity, and joy. So we are going to tap into that energy, creativity, and joy. When the pain wasn't too overwhelming, that part of me, which I now experience as capital Me, that little boy would come out and relate, create, celebrate, and be. All right, just a quick recap. Step one, last time we learned that the problem with powerlessness is that our inner child might not feel safe. So that is definitely going to come up in step 4 and 5. Step 2, we learned and talked about how a child views God, and we brainstormed what that looked like. And we talked about getting to choose our own adjectives from that list of what our higher power looked like. Step 3, we did the childlike action of simply trusting, simply letting someone else take care of us, and simply allowing all of our needs to be met. And then before we move on, I love how the step prayers lead us right into the next step. So as we head into step 4, I do want to do our Coda step 3 prayer. In this moment, I can choose my own higher power. I can set aside all the old beliefs about who I am not and be who I am, a child of God. I can remind myself that a faith in a higher power becomes a faith in me, and that my recovery lies in being true to myself and to my higher power. So all this faith and looking at ourselves as a child of God, I think is very important as we head into the pain of what step 4 might pull up. So here we are. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. How is our inner child going to look at this step, navigate this step, walk through this step? This is from Charlie W.'s story. All I ever wanted was for my parents to love and accept me. And I wanted to love and accept them, but something seemed to block that from happening very often. Well, it took me a long time to find out. I know now that both my parents were wounded and unrecovered adult children of dysfunctional families, and it showed up in each of them as active codependence. Growing up in that environment, how could I possibly learn to be healthy and happy? How could I expect to have fulfilling relationships? This is from our Blue Book, Step 4. As adults continually focusing on our recovery, we work the 4th step, which helps us to further identify and admit to these behaviors. So what the book is talking about here, you know what, let's take a little field trip. All right. So on our website, you will see this is our the home page. If you go to member resources, it should take us to, oh, we did it. Okay. Materials. Did I do it? I did it. Okay. So on this list, you will see over here patterns and characteristics. They have 2010, 2011. What we want is the recovery patterns of Codependence Anonymous. What CODA did after we lived with just the patterns of codependence, we discovered someone very smart, or a group of very smart people learned that it's also helpful to look at the in recovery part. This might be my most favorite thing in all of CODA recovery, is this list right here. So on the left side, we have the codependence often, and that's in step 4. Those are the patterns that we are going to identify in our lives, and the workbook walks you through doing that. Your sponsor will help you walk through that, or your Power of 5 group. But the new tool that we have is the in recovery, and I just want to point out to our inner child, our inner children, I feel like children especially and everyone, but children do well when we focus on the positive. When we say how things can get better, when we're not just pointing out, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what isn't working. And adults, sometimes it's really easy for us to see that and point out in the child what is broken. What I love about this, all of this, is that it says, let's look at this first, low self-esteem. Codependents often have difficulty making decisions. That is one that I identified with deeply when I entered recovery. I still struggle with making decisions, especially at the end of the day. I have a rule. I make no decisions after 9 p.m. Sometimes it's 7 p.m. Sometimes it's 5 p.m. It's always 9 p.m. But I get decision fatigue. In recovery, I trust my ability to make effective decisions, or I know well enough to wait until the next day and weigh that out. So I just want to point this out, though, especially those of you who are new to CODA recovery. This tool right here, I think, is so helpful and shows so much hope of what the program can offer. We get to live into the right side of this screen. All right, new share, back to, I think it's this one. Yeah, okay. So, as adults continually focusing on our recovery, which is what I'm doing here, we work the fourth step, which helps us to further identify and admit to these behaviors, the codependent behaviors that I just pulled up there. As we take a long, hard look at ourselves, deeply buried feelings begin to surface, bringing about the awareness that, at times, we have acted as a victim or victimizer due to our childhood experiences. Now, during this workshop, some inner child experiences of trauma, pain, brokenness might be pulled up. And that is, for me, a process that I'm working on probably for the rest of my life through therapy, reading, certainly through Codependence Anonymous to help heal. That's a whole different workshop. But, I just want to say that if you are living in that pain, there is a better way that we can live life. And for me, I'm going to give a shout out to therapy, working through that. So, do you know what kids don't like to do? Let's go back. The middle sentence, as we take a long, hard look at ourselves, children do not like to look at things they don't do well. Children do not like to have things pointed out in them that don't work, that they've done wrong. Do you know what adults don't like to do? The exact same thing. Now, we might hide it a little better, right? Like pretend we're okay with it. Like, oh yeah, sponsor, go ahead and tell me these broken things. But we might be on the inside having that childhood temper tantrum, I don't want to, kicking and screaming. So we are going to talk about some ways, some softer and easier ways to do step 4 and 5 so that your inner child feels comfortable and safe. All right, we are going to have a popcorn time. This is where you can raise your hand and give one sentence or a couple of words. Those of you who have experience with children, which is all of us because we were all once children, how does a child approach a new activity? That is the question, and I'm going to write that here, and you can raise your hand if you have an answer. How does a child approach a new activity? Anyone? So, next screen. This is from our 12 Steps Handbook. If searching meant to look for something lost or concealed, right, made a searching and fearless inventory. Those are the two descriptive things that we are given, searching and fearless. If searching meant to look for something lost or concealed, we were really on the brink of a great adventure, the discovery of our true selves. Isn't that fantastic? I love that approach to the fourth step. That is not how I felt the first time I did my fourth step, or the second time. Probably not even the third time. We were really on the brink of a great adventure, the discovery of our true selves. So here's my next popcorn question. How does a child search for something lost? Let me go back to here. How does a child search for something that is lost? So let's look at this list. Although let me see if I can quickly get us back to that other screen. Yes, let me just point out again, if searching meant to look for something lost or concealed, we were really on the brink of a great adventure. So if we are going to put on our inner child goggles and look at this fourth step and see that maybe it's going to be a great adventure, that we will be discovering our true selves as we look for those characteristics that we identify with. So let's go back to this list. These are all things that we can offer to our inner child. Asking a parent, maybe taking a moment, crying at the pain. We might have some anxiety. We might be blaming other people, carrying those resentments. We might only be looking at the surface when we are doing our step 4, especially that first time. And I do believe every time we go through, whatever we bring is enough for that time, that just simply doing it, showing up and being willing is important. That we are searching energetically, maybe ripping everything in our lives apart, enlisting the help of a friend, a sponsor, someone in program, someone they trust. We are going to explore that in step 5. Curiously and with wonder. Yeah, like I wonder what in me needs changing so that I can be in less pain. I'm looking desperately and looking hyper-focused and with intensity. Great list, group. Okay. The message in step 4 was clear. This inventory of ourselves was to be honest and straightforward, not critical or abusive. So we need to make sure that our inner child feels safe, feels like they can trust this work that we are doing to not be critical or abusive. I don't know about you guys, but I can be more mean to myself than anyone else on this planet. And I can talk to myself in a way that I would never allow someone to talk to my children, in a way that I would never talk to someone else. So, I think bringing kindness, love, care, warm, gentle, higher power care to this step is crucial. If this was to be a thorough inventory, we would need to list our assets and our liabilities. That meant we would have a truly balanced picture of ourselves. This is something that is different for me. I'm in another recovery program. And in that program, I did not look at my assets or my assets. And that was actually very difficult for me. I was quite resistant to it. I did not want to make that list. And it was hard for me to do. So we are going to work on that list today. I do want to say, those of you who have not done step 4 before, or if you're feeling like you want to walk your inner child through a new step 4, our CODA workbook offers the tools to do that very specifically. It tells us how to do that. But what we are going to take time to do today is to look at our assets. So we're going to take some time to journal right now. There's a positive attribute chart in our workbook on page 56. You do not need that to participate. I'm just pointing that out as a tool. What I would like for you to do is grab a piece of paper, a scrap, or on your computer, quickly and without judgment, people, I want you to write down your essence. For me, that would be, what makes Jackie Jackie? And what do you like about yourself? And we're going to do this for about 3 minutes. Try and get as many things on that list as you can. So what we're working on today is that first column, which is the positive attributes. All right, we're going to come back together and we're going to do something that might feel very vulnerable. I'm wondering if you all might be willing to share one thing off of your list. Maybe it's the hardest thing for you to actually write down. Maybe it's the thing you like most about yourself. Maybe it's something new that you identified today. But I would love for full participation on this. You can also put it in the chat. Let's all just brag a teeny tiny bit about something in our essence that makes us unique. Off my list, I'm going to pull the word joy. I feel like I offer a lot of joy to the world. All right, can you raise your hands, brave souls? I know for me, when I went through my CODA steps, doing the list of liabilities was really easy. I mean, it was very painful, but I could beat myself up and down for days, pages and pages and pages, and making this list of things that I thought made me worthy, which I want to give a shout out to us simply being worthy by being human. We are all children of God. I wear this ring and it says, I am enough. And I have to touch it all the time because I forget. I'm never enough, ever, 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 ever. So I touch it and I say I'm enough. And we are worthy and we are loving, lovable, and loved. So, you know, those things are just inherent to us as human beings. And if you've ever worked with children, you know, especially the littles that are so full of wonder, you know, it's easy to bring that softness and the connection to their joy and wonder. But I don't do that with myself very often. I wanted to share, and it looks like we have time. My children, for their birthdays, like to have slumber parties. They are now 12, 14, and 16. So I've been doing this a while. We start slumber parties about age 8. At bedtime, which when they were little, you know, like age 8 is pretty young to be doing a slumber party. The fears would start to set in, you know, I'd turn the lights off, they'd all get in their sleeping bags, and are they going to make it through the night? Which everyone makes it through the night. Sometimes they wake up 10 or 12 times. But we had this tradition where I would go through each of the kids. I'd start with the birthday child, and I would just list off things about these children that that I saw that made them unique and precious and special. And the whole room gets quiet. And what's beautiful is the kids start participating. Oh, Mrs. You forgot that, you know, Johnny's also really good at sharing. And it was so beautiful that these kids were, you know, filling each other's buckets and they loved it. And, you know, it didn't relieve all the anxiety, but it helped provide some peace and some security and some feelings of self-worth. And why don't we do that for ourselves, especially as we enter into step 4? and telling our inner child, you are full of joy. I am really proud of the way you take your recovery seriously. Every single one of you showed up today trying to work on being, as Eric said, the best version of ourselves for today in this moment. So we can talk to ourselves out loud like that. And I know the voice inside my head gets very judgmental. I can't believe you did that. You messed up again. You keep doing that. And if I say those things out loud, they feel very, very mean. So I try to counteract those things. We've talked in other workshops about affirmations. And I have an app on my phone, and it says, I am all these beautiful things. And if I'm in a really bad place, I will pull up my app and I will read my favorites and I will say them out loud so that I can hear my voice saying those things. I am enough. I am worthy. I am loving, lovable, and loved. I'd like to invite everyone to use that sentence that I used. I am more blank than before. And I heard a couple of others saying that, like, that something's in process. In recovery, we never arrive. There's no arrival, it's a journey. And I feel like one of the lucky ones because I made it into the rooms. I am alive because of recovery. I literally am. And my life is less painful because of Codependence Anonymous. Makes my life better. I do want to say that I hear often, I feel like step 4 and 5 are what separate, the proverbial boys from the men, girls, whatever, you want to say, but people get stuck on step 4. In my other program, I'm also in AA. That's when people go back out and drink because it's so painful. The gift of what we get in CODA that I didn't get in my other recovery is when the pain gets too hard, we get to go to the other side. And I would encourage you to do these lists back and forth. Okay, you know what? I just wrote 12 codependent traits and how they show up and my feelings around those and how I'm trying to, change them. And that's feeling really heavy and yucky. And for me, my inner child shows up by me feeling out of alignment in my body. I feel it in my gut when my inner child is not happy or it feels unsafe. Go to the other list. We've been given this tool of, okay, and you know what? I do struggle in these areas, and I work really hard, and I bring joy, and I really, show love to my mom, or, whatever the things are that we get to balance these. Don't just fill that one list. That is what I would encourage your inner child to do, right? Get a little boastful. Climb up on the top of that big rock. I'm the king of the mountain and I'm awesome. I think this is a good time to pause. All right, welcome back to portion B of part 2 of this workshop. All right, we are going to venture into step 5. I'm just going to give myself an attaboy for navigating the computer stuff. Good job, Jackie. My inner child likes hearing that. Okay, so we just did our positive attributes, and I invite you to do that at any time to help lift your spirits, feed your inner child with some attaboys. It's from our 12-step handbook. It was at step 5 that we were offered the chance to have shame and guilt transformed into humility. I'm going to read this again because I think it's so beautiful. This tells us what is offered in step 5, the chance to have shame and guilt transformed into humility. Isn't that beautiful? Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Where's my aha? Oh yeah, I'm gonna skip to this screen. So when I was making these slides and writing these words out, I swear I had never seen the words to ourselves in there. I thought about admitting it to God and to another human being, but to myself. So I wrote, that's my aha moment. What? So I'm still chewing on that a little bit. Okay, so this is the reader's digest version of 1 through 5. Oh, I didn't cite the source. This is from one of our Coda literatures. So this is the Reader Digest condensed version. In step 1, we admitted our powerlessness. In step 2, we became willing to acknowledge that our self-will was out of control. With step 3, we turned our will over to God's care. Step 4 guided us to put our predicament, and we just learned our attributes, onto paper. Step 5 gave us the opportunity to make another leap of faith. Now it's going to tell us what we're going to do in step 5. We would now expose our deepest secrets to God, to ourselves, and to another person. All right, I shared that already. Admitted God to ourselves and to another. This is from our 12 Steps Handbook. Most of us spend a lifetime fearing and often defending ourselves against exposure. If you really knew me, you wouldn't like me, could have been our collective chorus of shame. Now, in this step, we were being asked to relinquish our protective shields. So, and I think for me, it wasn't just if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me. I had also been told that from other people, especially my ex-husband, who actually said if they really knew you the way that I knew you, and then fill in the horrible thing. It was awful. And how much more amazing to hear from the people closest to us say, if they really knew you, they would love you. You know, the opposite of that. And that's what God tells us every day, you know, that we are loving, lovable, and loved. That could have been our collective chorus of shame. So we are being asked to relinquish our protective shields. So here I'm going to use this slide again. The problem of powerlessness is that inner child, and I will speak for me. What came up, I'm in the process of going through my steps again. I have a new sponsor in my other program, and I'm realizing the level of safety I need to navigate this world is incredible. And I believe my inner child's fundamental and essential need is safety. So, resistance to step 5. Many of us became resistant, and this resistance took diverse forms, and they listed some of these in our handbook. There was passivity, I'll do it someday. I feel like step 4 and 5 really takes some buckling down. You have to make a decision to get them done. Others were enraged. My life is nobody's business but mine. Many were fearful. This organization is obviously a cult. That's written in our literature, people. Some of us believed we were overworked and tired. Wasn't that inventory I did enough? No, the steps tell us it's not enough. That's step 4. When you complete it, you go to step 5. So good job on doing the inventory. Now we have to do step 5. Admitted to God. Oh, I feel like Heidi did last week with the typo. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another. At the suggestion of Coda friends who had already worked these steps, we decided to risk this exposure we feared in the safest way possible with our higher power by admitting first to God. We were reminding ourselves that the primary element in our recovery was spiritual. Steps 1, 2, and 3. This is from our 12 Steps Handbook. Without realizing it, most of us had lived with an undercurrent of constant tension, that had sapped our energy and our joy. So I know I didn't realize the level that I was living with constant anxiety. For me, that undercurrent of constant tension showed up as anxiety, which I'm still dealing with to this day. But I didn't realize the level of it. That's what I used alcohol to numb until I worked these steps and felt it relieve. And once I felt it go away, I realized how constant it was. And I want to go back a few screens just to read. Remember this promise. It was at step 5 that we were offered the chance to have our shame and guilt transformed. And for me, even removed my shame and guilt of not being enough, which is my constant dialogue, my narrative. All right, most of us chose to share our 4 steps with a trustworthy and understanding CODA member, someone who had been in the program long enough to have worked most, if not all, of the steps. It was also important to give this inventory away to someone who was, in our opinion, living the program. So a sponsor, your Power of 5 group, if that's what you're working with. And we are going to work on, this is a popcorn time. I think offering our inner child the safest possible environment to bring this step 4 list to is essential when we're walking our inner child through the steps. So what I would like to do is come up with this another human being adjectives list. So we are going to go back to our popcorn and whoops, cancel. So if you are choosing your person to share your 4th step list with, what is essential, important, helpful for that human being? What attributes should they have? What do they need to be like? This is a raise your hand, and we're going to come up with a group list. That is an amazing list. That's almost as good as our list of what our higher power could be from the last workshop. I loved that list. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we're going to keep that list, but we're going to, how do I do this? Okay, go back to that one. Popcorn time. So we just wrote another human being adjective list. So what I want to say is those of you who sponsor, I want to invite you. We're going to look at this list now as a sponsor, or if you aren't a sponsor right now, you very well could be someday in the future. When you sponsor, this is what our group just said we need from you when we are approaching step 5. Okay, so as a sponsor, it would be helpful if we were open-minded, safe, neutral, non-judgmental, trustworthy, compassionate, nurturing, loyal, safe, a good listener, vulnerable, living the program, relatable, understanding, encouraging, optimistic, inspirational, patient, loving and lovable, huggable, ethical, open, kind, open-hearted, available, humble, boundaried, compassionate, and authentic. So that's the two sides of the coin. That's what we're looking for when we're going to do our step 5. And when someone brings their step 5 to us, how amazing it would be to offer this thing that this room just said would be helpful. All right, back to this. All right, let me see. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this now. Okay. So if you have not done your 4th and 5th step, I think it can be intimidating. So what I would like to do, what time is it? Yeah, I want to take a little bit of time. Those of you who have done your step 4 and 5, if you are willing to vulnerably share your hope around that, what that process might have looked like, let me invite you to share the transformation that maybe happened, share surprises that you weren't expecting from your 4 and 5. So if someone is sitting at the beginning of their step 4, just unable to take that leap, what reassurance can you give their inner child? Yeah, and someone had mentioned earlier the we program aspect of this. And I was so sure when I entered recovery that nobody had done as many horrible, awful things as I had done, right? And then to see the sponsor nodding their head, just in understanding, which is one of the words that's on our list. I think a common thread in codependency is that laddering up, laddering down, where we either feel less than or more than. And I feel like step 4 and 5 is great at equalizing, right sizing, like giving this, it's a reality check, like, this is the good, this is the bad, and seeing it for the first time with clarity, Yeah. You reminded me when I entered program, CODA, the control patterns, I didn't check any of them. It's really fun because in my book, I have my first list of check marks, what I identified with. And then I went back a little later and did some check marks, and but I had 0 on the control. And what I have learned in recovery is that my control shows up a little differently. It's more manipulation, passive aggressiveness. But I wasn't able to see that when I first entered. I could sure see the low self-esteem, among other things. So thank you for sharing that. I love that you point out and remind us that higher power shines the light on these things. And, I do believe it is in higher power's timing. And if we were to see all of this at one time, it would just knock us over, that it is, some of it is a gradual revealing, more will be revealed if we stick around. Several of you are asking about the Power of 5, and just put something in there. I've been to several meetings where they make announcements that they're putting together new Power of 5 groups. I have not been involved in any of that, but I've heard such good things about them. And sponsorship, for those of you who are new to CODA, who especially if you're coming from another recovery program where finding a sponsor isn't very difficult. Finding a sponsor in CODA can be difficult. If you're eager to get these steps started, find a Power of 5 group. And my experience was the same, where the steps in CODA, they're completely different. And it's a beautiful, different kind of healing. So yeah, and we can't work on something until we identify it, right? Okay, how are we doing? 11 minutes, people. Let me get back to here. All right, I just heard a whole bunch of hope from some really people with really great recovery. I love our collective wisdom as a group, like the lists we made were just beautiful. All right, okay, looking for the attaboys. So we can talk to our inner child. We can talk to any part of ourselves. Good job. You are very brave. Way to go. And If that is not, I will say that is not my normal language. If that is not your normal language as well, I would encourage you to um, to look for the areas, even the small things. Like I just did it on this workshop. Great job, Jackie, pulling up the screen share. you know? So, what I want to do right now, I just want to take maybe 2 minutes and let's just journal. I want you to think of something recent. Well, it doesn't have to be recent. Why am I setting limits? I want you to find a few attaboys for yourself that you have done well. What have you done well? And I want you to write it down. That is so important. And I hope you all heard that, especially our newcomers, that, that first thought might not change, but that the time between the beat yourself up and the build yourself up gets shorter. And like, oh, yeah, I get to be nice to myself. I get to say good, loving, kind things because my nature is to say, oh, you messed up again. What were you thinking? Oh, yeah. And, we get lots of chances for do-overs too. I'm not going to speak for all of us. It's a joy. I'll say that for me. So I know I'm pushing time here. I just want to invite you to make attaboys a part of your daily 10th step, that we get to look back at our days. I do it as I'm laying in bed at night and we can say, oh, well done in that area. It's not just, oh, next time I want to do this, or I need to make this amends, or, oh, I did that really, really well. So I want to invite that. I have 2 more screens. I know it's straight up on the hour. I'm just going to push through these last 2 screens. Okay, 5th step prayer. In this moment, you can say it with me if you like. I will acknowledge myself for doing what was most difficult for me. I will rest in the accepting presence of my higher power. I know I have deepened my commitment to the journey of recovery by opening myself and my heart to a fellow human being. Isn't that beautiful? We have a prayer that goes with each of our steps. That's our 5th step prayer. And I'm going to close with the prayer that I like, which is from our blue book. It's from Andy's story. It's not really a prayer, but everything can be a prayer, right? So if you want to read this along with me to our higher power, I leave you now with the hope that you will be fearless and thorough, face your truth with rigorous honesty, finally accept your powerlessness over other people and your compulsiveness. Let go that your higher power may bring grace into your life. Laugh too. That's going to make our inner child so happy. Allow yourself to enjoy life. These are my hopes for you and for me. I also hope that our higher power's love will fill us with self-love so that we may live each day in peace and love and thus be free to be of service to our fellows. It's a wrap. We made it through steps 4 and 5. Yes, we made it and we didn't have to rush or anything. Well, thank you all for going on this journey.